Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the G and Finn Show here on 92.1 FM Rebel Radio. It has been another beautiful week in Oxford, Mississippi. My name is George Ruggiero.
And I'm John Finnegan.
And how have you been, John? How's your week gone?
I can't complain too much. At least it's Friday now.
Oh, yeah. And at least the last couple days have been, clear skies, a little bit on the chilly side, but at least there's no rain.
Yeah, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get right into it with some NFL news. We're going to talk a little bit of just general what's going on in the NFL, a little bit of free agency, and a good bit of combine and draft talk. And then we're going to get you with some college baseball and MLB news at the end. But, George, you want to get started? Big stories from the NFL this week?
Yeah, big stories. I think one of the biggest and one of the most interesting to me has been Vontaze Burfict. And for those of you that don't know, Vontaze Burfict is, how should I put it? I don't want to say anything that would be necessarily off-color, but
he's a strong proponent of CTE.
I think that's the best. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. He recently got reinstated this week by the league, very quietly, keep in mind. There wasn't a huge, crazy, uproar about this. After being suspended 12 games last season for a helmet-to-helmet hit on Colts tight end Jack Doyle.
And wasn't even close to his first.
No.
If he's picked up by a team, which I expect he will be, I have to imagine it won't be his last.
And that's the thing. This is one of those situations where he's more than a repeat offender. This is kind of a thing where
it's habitual.
It's habitual.
It's not repeat, it's habitual.
It almost feels serial in a way. The fact that every time he gets suspended, almost the next game back or a couple games into the next season, he's immediately on the shelf.
And I don't know if that's because it's right when he gets back from suspension or it's just because he's so often suspended and he has such a tendency to do that the few games he does play in, he already runs and causes himself another issue.
And that's the thing. When we say that this isn't something new, he was suspended 12 games in the 2019 season. That was the fourth year running in which he was suspended by the NFL. And that's not all. He's also getting, max fines for hits. He's honestly making the league more dangerous whenever he's on the field. And if I'm the NFL, you have to ask the question, when do you take the next step and say, look, if we're really focused on player safety, you can't play anymore. I think that's the question that the league itself needs to ask, if and when. To me, this isn't an if question. This is a when he creates another situation like he's already put himself in.
And you know what? If I'm the NFL, so these aren't my opinions. This isn't what I would do. But if I'm thinking like the NFL, I'm thinking, you know what? Big hits are good for the league. That's good press. Well, not necessarily good press, but that's news. Big hits keep people in seats. People like watching them. Not any publicity is good publicity. I don't think that's accurate for an organization like the NFL. But the problem runs into, and a massive problem the NFL is running into, is short-term, yeah, absolutely. People like seeing big hits. Cool. And we can just suspend a guy when he does something wrong per our policies, and we're all good. We're all above board. The issue I see is, and more so for CTE than these single concussion events like Vontaze Burfict always causes, is parents aren't going to want their kids to play football. That's less talent playing football, more talent going to other sports. That's a worse on-field product in the future. That's a worse on-field product as soon as 10 years from now. When do kids start playing Pop Warner?
I would have to think, going into elementary and middle school,
yeah,
so very young ages, that people are putting pads and helmets on their kids and having them go out there and play football.
If a sixth grader wants to play his first down of football, parents say, "Hey, you know what? We're not paying for your football gear if you really want to play football, just because we think it's dangerous. We're worried about your health." Then maybe they play baseball instead. Maybe if Kyler Murray's parents were worried about CTE, he'd be playing for the Oakland A's.
Or, same thing with, you could even say, going back a little bit further, Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He played
A.J.
for
Brown.
the Yankees. Yeah. All these top-tier and premier athletes that we've seen come through the NFL, and if we go even further back, Ocho Cinco. Rumor has it he's a great soccer player. Same thing with Odell Beckham Jr. If injuries and CTE and these concussion symptoms were more highly reported and not kind of, I don't want to say abused by the NFL. This is actually coming from me. I think a lot of these big hits, in a way, are abused by the league for that publicity that you're talking about. And in a way, that very well could dilute the talent pool for the league in the coming years.
And on multiple occasions, there have been, coming to your point of the NFL using them for publicity when they're publicly outspoken against them, there have been multiple occasions of advertisements, Super Bowl promotions, just promotional hype videos, highlights before going to commercial during a game, where they'll show illegal hits as like, hey, check this out. Like, this is man football, you know? None of that pansy stuff. This is real football. And a second after the clip cuts off, they threw a flag and the player got fined $15,000.
Yeah,
So I think the NFL really needs to consider that. I think they really could be running into issues as far as their talent pool. Will the NFL go away? I don't expect it to. Does this pose a existential threat to the NFL? Potentially, if the scope of it turns out to be greater than we thought. Does it pose a significant financial threat to them as a company? Absolutely. And to their investors and the owners? Absolutely. Because, you know what? For a lot of players, if you're a good enough baseball player to play in the majors, if you know you're good enough that you're not going to wallow away in the minors, and you're good enough at football that you know you're not going to wind up on a practice squad or in the CFL or in the XFL, you'll be on a roster somewhere, starter or not. There are an awful lot of players that are two-sport athletes, baseball and football. Just being on the team, baseball players are going to make a heck of a lot more money.
And over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
The longevity of a baseball career, for the most part, is so much longer. Do you know the average length of an NFL career? I know this off the top of my head just because I saw the stat just the other day.
3.4 years?
Something like that. At most, the
Shorter
average
than a
is
rookie,
4.
shorter than a rookie contract.
Yes, because the NFL has...
The median NFL player does not get a contract extension.
No. The regular, average, everyday NFL player does not get that second big money contract. The league is very, very good at recognizing when, its talent is ready to be, quote, retired, and recycles it. Sure, there are players that go on from a starting running back role or even a backup or a third-string running back role and shift to a special teams player, but not every player gets that opportunity. Not every player gets that second contract, even if it is at a second or third position. Whereas in baseball, once you make it into the majors, you're kind of set. That's where you start making your money, and that's where you start getting those second and third contracts, even if they're just one-year deals with Major League Baseball. And we've seen it time and time again with baseball. People get second chances, third chances, fourth chances from teams that need the help. I mean, isn't that almost in a way Moneyball? Taking players that, look at this, they're only good at this one thing, we can use that. Whereas in the NFL, if you're only good at one thing, you're gone in 3 years, 4 years. Whereas
John Ross.
Simple as that.
He didn't make it to the end of his rookie contract, did he?
Not that I know of.
No, and he broke the combine in the same way DK Metcalf did. He ran a 4.22?
He
Or
definitely
4.20?
He definitely broke the record. He has
But
the fastest 40
he still
time.
holds the combine record.
Yes.
We're actually going to get into a bit more combine in a little bit because someone came pretty dang close.
Oh, yeah.
Someone from Alabama who ran all over us. But for your reference, Eli Manning, two-time Super Bowl MVP and Super Bowl winning quarterback. What year did he get drafted? 2000 or 2001?
Either one of those years. Yeah, it was the same year as Rivers.
Phil Rivers, yeah. But in the ballpark of an 18-year career, he's the highest-paid NFL player of all time, just ahead of Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, all in the same ballpark, all within 10% of each other as far as career earnings are Eli, Peyton, Drew Brees, Brady, Rodgers, Big Ben, Matt Ryan, and Phil Rivers.
I think I know where you're going with this.
All in the same ballpark.
I think I know where you're going with this.
And highest paid baseball player of all time? Do you happen to know?
Trout?
Not yet.
Okay, I was thinking like immediately with their current contracts, and that would be Trout, who just got a $400 million contract.
And his single season is 30, I believe.
Something
Right?
like that.
I think
Yeah,
it's
long,
300 over 10.
It's a long contract, but it's A-Rod, right?
It's Alex Rodriguez. Total career
Yeah.
earnings, $450.2 million. He made what Eli Manning plus Drew Brees made in their careers for a very similar length career. His highest single season salary, $33 million. He has 3 MVP awards. He has 1 national title. Brees has 1 national title and an MVP award. Eli has 2 Super Bowl MVPs and 2 rings. Very similar players if you can draw allegories as far as career length accomplishments, and A-Rod made what those 2 players made combined.
Just quick thing. So, and I just want to bring this up almost more to a little bit of recency, and it may be recency bias or the amount of money in the leagues now. So, this player is 29 years old. How much, again, did Eli Manning make over his entire career? Over 18 years.
$250 million.
Okay. Do you remember Anthony Rendon's contract?
Not off the top of my head.
7 years, $245 million with the Angels. So, for less than half of Eli Manning's career, Rendon will make the same amount of money. And he's already 29. So, likely, this contract will get him pretty close to the end of his career, for Rendon, that is, and he will have already made as much money as Eli Manning did in 18 seasons.
How old is Rendon going to be when his contract expires?
36.
And Eli, I want to say 41?
I think Eli's 38.
Okay.
I'll double-check that real
Anyway,
quick.
that's a significant difference, especially when those are years you can, for non-quarterbacks, those are years you can keep playing baseball that pretty much anyone except except kickers, punters, and quarterbacks, you usually don't play past 30, especially skill positions. Linemen maybe
yeah.
push it to 32.
I mean,
but-
if we're looking at like the top class of linemen like Joe Thomas,
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, and he retired at 32, 33.
Yeah.
He's been out of the league for 2 seasons now, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Which, that in itself is insane to me, that some of the top talent in the league can just drop out and call it a career at such young ages, where in other sports, just because of the lessened physicality of the sports, they're going to play until 45. I mean, how old was Ichiro when he decided to retire?
I couldn't tell you.
And just for reference, Eli's 39.
Okay.
And he just called it.
And so that's all this to say, with the size of NFL versus MLB rosters, just the way the NFL salary cap works and the way the MLB works now with the new luxury tax as of a few years ago, you can bet on yourself and make a case for either. You can say, you know what, I think I'm going to wind up being one of the highest paid baseball players of all time, so I'll play baseball. Or you can say, I think I'm going to get drafted first overall, Kyler Murray, and I'm guaranteed. What's the first overall worth?
I'm not actually sure.
10?
It's something. It's really high, especially for a
It's
rookie
very high for a
contract.
rookie.
Especially when you include the team options.
Yeah, the team options are when it
And
really gets up
the
there.
team options and the franchise tags that a number 1 overall pick garners are ridiculous.
It's
Like
just
in the $20-something
It's
million
just
range.
the possibility that your team will sign you for the average of the top 5 players at that position as a player on their 4th or 5th year in the league. But guys like Kyler Murray, if it's the difference between me making $100 and $200 million in my career, but there's a 10, 15, 20% chance that by the time I'm 40, I'll have dementia, I'll have this whole host of other mental issues, I may become violent, my personality could entirely change. I don't know if it's the difference between 100 and 200 million, I don't know if I'd take that chance, and I don't think I do.
And that's the thing. At this point, just to kind of rein it back into where we started with this topic, Vontaze Burfict, players like him are making the league more dangerous and making, yes, single concussion cases don't cause CTE necessarily, but for many of the players that he has concussed, it's not the first time.
Yeah.
It's not the first concussion they've had. I mean, just look at Antonio Brown.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
And when you look at the important distinction between what we refer to, or we're referring to at least, as a normal concussion versus CTE. CTE are smaller impacts that wouldn't be noticeable on their own, not necessarily enough to really be considered medically a concussion, although they technically are
They're minor.
in a vacuum. But
Yeah.
it's the repeated, numerous, day in, day out, every single day you go to work, you get a couple of them. The major concussions, once you get up past 3 or 4, I have friends in college who played ultimate frisbee and had to medically retire because they'd had 5 concussions from a non-contact sport.
Yeah.
Those can ruin your life in a completely different way. And you know what? If you take a hit from Vontaze Burfict, you're probably a quarter of the way to the end of your career based on concussions.
And that's why I think the NFL, if anything happens again, he's already been reinstated. They're not going to rescind that. If they go back, or if he goes back to his previous play style and hits someone like that again, and I mean, I say that if, because according to his agent, he's working and working hard to do things the right way. They're always going to say that, but if another thing like this happens again, and if I'm the NFL, you've got to actively talk about kicking him out of the league.
Yeah, anything that comes from him or comes from him via his agent, it's crocodile tears. I harbor no empathy for his situation. I harbor no sympathy for his situation. I don't think he belongs in the NFL. I think he's suspended again by the end of next year. If the NFL knows what's good for them, they really ought to kick him out of the league permanently. While we're on the topic of, free agency, salaries, franchise tags, let's get into where do you think some of these notable free agents are going to wind up? You want to start with Vontaze?
Vontaze, sure. As interesting as this is, for some reason, I've got a weird feeling, and I know we talked a little bit about this off air. For some reason, I just feel like I see him in a Patriots jersey, just because if there's another defense, or if there's a defensive team and a defensive scheme and coordinator that can kind of rein him in and make him play a system to win, it would probably be that one.
And you know what? I'm going to have to disagree with you. I really don't have a guess for where Vontaze is going to wind up, just because he really hasn't been in my head or in the news the past few weeks until his reinstatement, so I haven't thought about it much. I'm going to say I don't expect him to wind up on the Patriots, and kind of here's why. Of course, Belichick has a significant history. Of course, he functions as GM. He has a significant history of developing players with off-the-field character issues, whether it's drugs, domestic violence, that sort of thing, and unconventional players, like whether it's a middle school rugby player from New Zealand or a circus
It could be anything,
acrobat
really. Yeah.
to play special teams.
I mean, look at
he,
Rex
he does
Burkhead.
have a history of, yeah, absolutely. That's a great example. He absolutely has a history of getting kind of odd fits for the position, non-conventional players from non-conventional sources, which I think Vontaze would fall under to a degree, but
Yeah.
he's never had Belichick has never had a history of recruiting players with on-field issues. I think that he can separate the player from the man to a degree and ignore off-the-field issues. I don't think the on-field behavior of Vontaze Burfict is conducive to the Patriot way, and I really don't think the Patriots are in any position to be signing free agents on their defense. They have a lot of defensive contracts coming up, and with the way their defense performed, they're going to be expensive.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. And I mean, while we're on the topic, there have already been a couple signings and a couple tags that have been extended. Chris Jones, the star defensive lineman from the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs reportedly plan to use their franchise tag on Chris Jones. We'll get a little bit more info on that as free agency starts to develop and as we actually get the number on that. But realistically, that should be a huge contract. And John, I know that you've got the list pulled up. What other free agents are we kind of looking at to start, this free agent period?
Well, I think the number one is Tom Brady.
Okay.
What do you think happens to Brady?
So here's my thing with Tom. Another thing reportedly, and this actually comes
way-
from a really reliable source, comes
yeah.
from, is it Rappaport or Schefter? I think it came from...
The report as far as him being stunned if he remains with New England?
Yeah, and the fact that
was,
the team hasn't really reached out to him at all.
That was Jeff Darlington, ESPN's Jeff Darlington.
That's right. That's
not
right.
on the Twitter reporter level of Schefter or Rappaport, but in the journalism community, his opinion is just as valuable as a tweet from one of those two.
Gotcha.
He actually came on record today on the Dan Le Batard show that if Tom Brady stays with New England, he'll get tased on a live show. He's that confident. I would love if that were a policy for beat reporters around the league.
I mean, it would certainly make things a lot more interesting, especially around deadline day. But with the fact that people are really thinking that he's not going to stay in New England, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Because you really have to then look at the teams that need a player like Tom Brady, teams that are pretty much at that level that just need a quarterback. Ones that really come to mind are Indy, the Chargers, oddly enough, even though they just got rid of Phillip Rivers, and maybe Tampa? Tampa's got a lot of good pieces, but I'm not sure that they're ready to put it all together yet, and I'm not sure that they're going to give up on Jameis Winston just yet. I mean, he did just get LASIK. Maybe he finally figured out what two different jerseys look like.
I genuinely think the most hysterical thing that could happen, and look, news has been weird enough lately. We obviously live in a simulation. It's all made up. The funniest thing that could possibly happen in the NFL is if Jameis Winston has a 50-touchdown, 9-interception MVP Super Bowl winning season, and we realize that his entire career he just hasn't
been able to see.
He's just been trying to throw to one of his 21 open receivers.
He's just been really nearsighted, and everything past like 5 yards has just been a blur.
And I think that would be hysterical.
So what other pieces are on the market right now? What do we got?
And just want to make a quick note while we were talking about average player salary and everything. I was reminded that NFL pension kicks in after 4 years.
Yeah.
So the fact that the average is under 4, the average NFL player, guys who get drafted, picked up in free agency through the NFL Pathways program, the average player who makes it to the NFL doesn't even play long enough to get a pension. They play in the NFL
That's ridiculous.
for less time than they spent in college football, in all likelihood.
That's ridiculous. Like, that's genuinely insane.
So what do you expect Brady to do?
Go to one of those contenders, because I don't think he's going to stay in Foxborough. It appears as though the team has really looked at the situation and decided to move on.
I think what I'm going to guess, I'm not entirely convinced he'll leave New England. I'm a Jets fan. I've watched him play twice a year against my team. He whooped them most of the times. I've watched him win several Super Bowls in a Pats uniform. It's so tough for me to imagine him anywhere else. I think if he winds up somewhere else, I think he winds up with the Titans.
Ooh, Tennessee. Do you think they move on from Tannehill? Is the question then? I
think the Titans plus Tom Brady have the talent to be a Super Bowl winning team. I think they proved that they're a slightly above average passing game away from being a potential Super Bowl contender. I mean, heck, they forced themselves into the conversation last year. They were a Super Bowl contender.
True.
They were a game away.
And honestly, if you look a little bit deeper, that's probably a fair choice for him, because he already has an established relationship with the head coach Mike Vrabel, who used to play with Brady on the Patriots.
Yeah. So I think I still expect him to re-sign with the Patriots. I think if he goes elsewhere, he winds up with the Titans, and I think that would be an excellent choice for the Titans. Although it does leave him in the tough spot. I'm not sure of their cap situation. I can't imagine they can afford to keep Brady on a I think I'd expect Brady to still take. Would you expect him to still take a slightly reduced salary? I would, like he does with the Patriots. By the way, if you're unfamiliar, Brady takes a lower salary than his talent would normally demand. He's the best football player of all time, and he's not even close to the highest paid, just because his wife Giselle makes most of the money in the family, and he'd rather have the talent around him
to win championships.
I don't think they can afford Brady and what Tannehill deserves. And I think Tannehill's tag would be too expensive.
Definitely. If we're looking at the Titans specifically, they have another person that needs re-signing that I think garners more respect than either, and that's Derrick Henry.
Absolutely.
So I don't think this could be a question between Brady and Tannehill, rather a question between Brady / Tannehill and Derrick Henry.
I think you can get... What's Tannehill get paid now?
Last time I checked, I think it was 14.
You know what? Well, Tannehill's making
It's backup money, realistically.
Yeah, and you know what? Brady doesn't command a massive salary just because of his expectations for his team organization and due to his personal situation. Yeah, I don't know, but it would really stink if I'm the Titans to have to cut Tannehill after he led you to as deep in the playoffs as they went.
Yeah.
But I still think it would be a good choice.
Let's just run through it and
yeah,
hit
all
some
right,
of the
let's
other
go
big
quick.
ones because we're
Breeze is going to
to
wind up back with the Saints.
Oh yeah, he's already said it.
Yeah,
he's already coming
said
back.
it.
Thanks, Instagram.
Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney. Ooh, he was in Seattle, correct?
Yep. 1 year deal.
See, the thing is, for some reason, I get the feeling he's not going to end up in Seattle again. I think one of these other teams. He's definitely not going back to Houston. He's already done that song and dance. He's not going back. I don't know why. I don't know what makes me feel this way, but I really got a weird feeling he'll end up in Green Bay.
I could see it. They do need help there. I think
they definitely need help at that edge position.
They could use help there. I do expect Green Bay is reported to make a run at Austin Hooper, tight end for the Falcons. They could definitely use another pass catcher in that position.
Oh, certainly.
Amari Cooper.
Back with the Cowboys.
I could see him.
I could see that.
I was going to say Green Bay. I think they could use. They could always use another receiving threat, especially one who brings a dimension to the office like Amari Cooper does.
I think
people are also talking about the Jets taking Amari Cooper because
Ooh.
they could use a number one receiver.
Definitely,
especially with
they do have the money.
Their best receiver, Robbie Anderson, is genuinely a number 2. We're both Jets fans, so we've seen him a bunch. And if he leaves, which he's expected to,
and he's non-committal.
They could use it.
He's non-committal to the
and
Jets.
they really don't want to use the 11th overall on a receiver when it's probably not even going to be the first receiver off the board.
My thing is
Byron Jones.
Byron Jones. What position is he playing? He's a corner.
Corner
right?
on Dallas.
Corner of Dallas. See, thing is, I'm not sure if he's truly a number 1 lockdown corner.
I don't think he is, but I think he's going to make that much money.
Exactly. I think he'll make that much money. I'm trying to think of a team that he seems the type of piece where a team that already has a fairly well-established defense would try and go after and say, this will shore up our secondary for sure, and this will get us past the rest of the league. Buffalo seems like a good fit, doesn't he?
Byron Jones and Trey White would be absolutely nasty. All right, we're gonna have to move through these real quick. Let's just get the last couple. Brandon Scherf, fantastic lineman for the Redskins. I think he signs with the New York Jets.
That's exactly what I was going to say because, first off, their new GM, Joe Douglas, loves a good offensive line. If you saw what he did in Philadelphia,
offensive line.
He looks like he played offensive line. He did play offensive line. And if you look at where he used to work, the Philadelphia Eagles, what did they always have in place? A strong offensive line.
They had one that made LaShawn McCoy look like a first-ballot Hall of Famer.
Exactly.
He's an excellent player, great player. Not a first-ballot Hall of Famer. A.J. Green, I think will wind up back in Cincinnati.
For some reason, here's my thing. I think he'll end up back in Cincinnati if they get rid of Andy Dalton. And that's kind of one of the other storylines that we can get into.
I'd expect them to move on from Dalton.
So do I.
Yannick Ngakoue.
Ooh.
I think
defensive end.
I could see him winding up on the Packers.
Same kind of situation
as
with Clowney.
Yeah, they need help there.
I feel like Ngakoue just doesn't garner as much money.
Now, this one's interesting. Tampa Bay's got 2 big ones, Shaquille Barrett and Jameis Winston. What happens to the 2 of them? Because reportedly
they want to tag Barrett, don't they?
Reportedly they want to tag Barrett, which would leave no tag for Winston, which is what a lot of people were expecting to happen.
If they do that and they tag Barrett and they don't keep Winston and they release him,
I have no idea what they're going to do at quarterback.
Rivers. Couldn't you see 2 old white guys on that team? Because they've already got one. They've got one at coach.
With the weapons they have,
that's what I'm saying. He seems like he would be a really good fit because that defense is nice. They've got a solid defense and they've got a lot of good young talent, especially wide receiver.
He's still a bit of a gunslinger.
Yeah.
No one's to the level of Brett Favre, Jameis Winston, but I think he'll excel in that role. I think they'd have a very good offense with him. That's a really interesting thought. And, yeah, I think that's all we've got as far as, Derrick Henry, I think, is going to wind up back with
Tennessee's going to keep him. I mean, Vrabel will push for that, like with management.
And
so hard.
They really ought to bring back if I'm Tennessee, you really got to bring back. I don't know about Logan Ryan, but you have to re-sign. Oh, man, who's their offensive lineman?
Jack Conklin.
Jack Conklin.
There he is.
He was.
He's instrumental.
He allowed
Incredible.
0 pressures through the entire playoffs. 0 QB hurries through the entire playoffs. That's nuts. They ran for so many yards. That's because of Jack Conklin. NFL Combine.
Yes, the combine is going on right
Joe
now.
Burrow has tiny hands. It was pretty funny
yeah.
because he tweeted about it.
He did tweet about it.
He was saying
it
he
a
was
good
planning
tweet.
on retiring from football after learning that the ball would be slipping out of his tiny baby hands. Mahomes encouraged him a bit, though, saying him and his tiny hands were doing just fine. They're just a quarter of an inch larger. He's expected to go to Cincinnati, of course.
Yeah, there's no. I don't.
He
think
had the
there's
best-
any way that he doesn't. Go to
Cincinnati needs
I
a
should
quarterback.
say.
They have the number 1 overall pick, and Joe Burrow just had the best single season a quarterback has ever had in college football. I don't think the fact that it's 9 inches is going to matter. If I'm Cincinnati and I overthink it and draft somebody else,
Yeah, that's the thing. That's
And-
where you take it to that level where you're trying to galaxy brain it, and that's not really what you need to do. You just need to go for best player available. When you're as bad as Cincinnati has been over the past 4 seasons, you just got to go. You just got to roll with the best player available.
yeah.
And I think right now,
But also at a position of massive need.
yes, that's exactly
The
what I
most
was going to
important
get
one on
to.
the field.
Because I do think the best player available is Chase Young. The
Yeah.
most impressive from last season, and at a position of need for the Bengals, is Joe Burrow. That said, Chase Young, he will take measurements. He is going to go through the
Will
interviews.
not be performing drills. He
No
shouldn't.
drills.
He is effectively a lock at number 2 unless someone trades up to get
Another
to
quarterback.
Tyreek Hill. Burrow also not participating in drills. Is that right?
As
Did
far
I
as
hear
I know,
something like
he's
that?
not.
Yeah, that's my understanding. If I'm Joe Burrow or Chase Young,
No,
I don't do it either. There's absolutely no reason
No.
to. There's a 90%
Come on.
chance you go number 1 or number 2. You are golden. Congratulations. Who are you looking at in the combine? Who's impressing you?
So one person that he wasn't necessarily impressive so far in the combine, but was very impressive to me last season, was Brandon Ayuk. He's a wide receiver from Arizona State, and I think he's going to go a little bit under the radar just because look at this wide receiver class. It's incredible. That said, he's an awesome athlete. He's, I think, about 6'1". He had a great season last year, 65 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns with Arizona State.
I think this is really going to be a story of, just like every draft, the top quarterbacks, at least at the top of the draft. I think so much of the top 5 is going to come down to, well, of course it's a significant portion. Do the Dolphins feel comfortable getting Tua at 5? A, do they want Tua? I think so. And
Yeah.
B, if they want Tua, are they confident they can get him at the number 5 pick? Or do they try to trade with the Redskins, the Lions, or I forget who has 4?
It's not Denver. Is it Oakland? Is Oakland at 4? No, it's the Giants.
Oh, yeah, it's the Giants.
That's right. And I mean, we all know the Giants are set with Daniel Jones. You know, they probably won't want to move down really because there are a lot of positions of need, especially offensive line. And offensive line is another deep position in this draft.
Yeah, there's, I think, 4 guys projected to go in the top 10 or close to it. And that's Tristan Wirfs,
Jedrick Wills.
Andrew Thomas, Jedrick Willis, and is it Mekhi Becton?
I don't know if he's one of the top ones. I think.
I consider him one. He's on my board for the Jets at 11.
Okay, yeah.
But-
I was about to say I had Thomas, Wills, and Wirfs as my top couple just to focus on. But Becton has really shown out so far.
He had
in
a
the combine.
nuts 40 time.
Was it like 5.1?
5'1". He also has the longest reach,
Which is very
by
important.
any player.
Very important.
measured in
he's-
the last few years.
He's a tackle, right?
Yes.
That's
Some people say in the NFL he might be more of a guard. I think they got silenced once they saw his wingspan.
yeah. That's one of the really important measurables for a tackle, just to be able to keep people away from you. Which, that sounds self-explanatory, but you never know.
And I think we're going to try to get into some baseball. We don't have too much time left, but real quick, honorable mentions. Henry Ruggs III out of Alabama ran a 4.27 official 40 time. That's sick. Also, Just saw the average 40 time for wide receivers. The wide receiver workouts are done. Today was linemen and offensive line and running backs.
Yeah.
The average 40 time hasn't varied too much between years. It's always been within 0.05 for the vast majority. This year, the 40s were between 3 and 7 p.m. Last year, they were 9 to midnight.
Ooh.
The average 40 time for wide receivers, that was just for wide receivers. Average 40 time was 0.15 of a second faster.
Whoa.
0.15 faster than last year. Maybe don't have the guys run at midnight, especially after they had to fly to Indianapolis. 4 reps at the combine.
Yes.
You got Scotty 2 Hotty Toddy, Scotty Phillips. 29 bench press reps, most out of any running back.
That's actually
That's dope.
that's more than some of these some of the other reps. All 3 of the other ones are defensive linemen. We've got Benito Jones, Kadir Shepard, and Josiah Coatney. Scotty's bench press was more impressive than, Shepard and Coatney. Benito, I'm not sure he's actually participating in any of the drills.
But received an invite and
Yes,
taking
received the
measurements.
invite, got the measurements. He's going to talk to people, which, great. I've heard just great things about him. He's probably the most likely to get a spot, if you ask me, based on just the resumes here and these other players involved. It's going to be Scotty and Benito, if you ask me.
Yeah,
But,
that's what I'd expect too. Potential camp guys, but
yeah. Scotty maybe ends up a special teams guy. Maybe.
hey, you know what? Running backs are always weird.
Yeah,
running
you
backs
never
are always
know.
weird. We're not going to have time for today, but the XFL also still exists.
Yes,
that being
it's
said,
still going on.
That being said, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back in a few with some baseball. And just like that, we're back. We're going to get right into it with some baseball. We don't have too much time left today. George, you want to go with college or MLB first?
I think we don't have as much MLB, so let's lead with that, and we can finish it out with some high-flying college baseball.
All right, so spring training underway in the MLB in Florida and Arizona. Baseball's almost back. This is probably the shortest offseason I've ever felt.
I think it's just because there's been so much going on throughout the MLB offseason that between free agency going bananas and everybody getting millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, and then the whole thing with the Astros, it just feels a lot shorter. But baseball's just about a month away, and I'm excited. I cannot wait for baseball to be back for real.
Yeah, I'm excited. And, of course, the Astros scandal still always developing. That's going to be a developing story probably throughout the rest of the season, especially if they wind up being another playoff team.
That note,
they are getting plunked.
Yeah, it's
Getting
comical, really.
through their first few spring training games. Small sample size, but they're averaging 1.4 batters hit by pitch per game. The MLB average is 0.35.
Yeah, I saw in their first 3 games, 7 batters were hit by pitches.
Yeah, so on average, they're having 3 guys get hit every 2 games. Normally, it takes 3 games on average for you to have a player get hit. That's hilarious. And you know what? I loved that because Bregman had he was asked an interview question about the unwritten rules of baseball. And he was asked, what's your favorite unwritten rule? He said, I don't have a favorite unwritten rule, but, my favorite part about it is simply that, they're the unwritten rules. You follow it. It's respect for the game, integrity. People hold each other accountable. Well, the Astros are certainly being held accountable. Astros walked off by the Nationals on Sunday. What a wonderful way to cap the weekend.
I mean, between that and I don't know if it was that game or one. Actually, no, it was against the Marlins. Bregman took one off the shoulder. Altuve took one in the first game off the foot. They're just doing pitchers are doing this without a care. It doesn't matter who it is because players that weren't even on that team are getting beamed.
And
it's happening.
You know what? If you're one pitcher, and if you're a team hitting the same guy 3 times in a game, that's not going to fly.
No.
If you're
spread it out.
If you're one pitcher hitting 2 guys, that's probably not going to fly, especially against the Astros when they'll be looking for it. But you know what? If you've got 2 different pitchers and they both happen to hit a guy,
I mean,
that's baseball. That happens.
And think about it.
It's plausible deniability.
It's spring training. These guys really aren't all going
to
end up on the team.
Yeah, I'm in off-season shape. It's my bad. I wasn't really locked in yet. I'm still warming up. Couple big injuries, both on the Yankees.
Yeah,
Luis Severino missed a lot of the season last year. He's already done for the year. Will require Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, my thing is with that, I just don't think they let him fully heal last season.
That's the
when
impression
they brought
I
him into
get.
the playoffs. Yeah,
I think they rushed him back as well, and he didn't look like himself out there.
no, he
And
really didn't.
Maybe it was already an issue. Maybe that aggravated it. Well, it's not like you can aggravate that injury. If it's there, it's there. But
Exactly. It's
one of the worst injuries. It's on the level of a meniscus tear. in
And
your
thing
knee.
is, he's done. He's done for probably another year and a half, especially with the season just around
so
the corner.
close when
Exactly.
he hasn't had the surgery yet,
No,
and the
thing
season
is-
starts soon.
And thing is, Stanton, he's been in and out for the Yankees since getting traded there from the Marlins. He's out for another good couple weeks with a calf strain. And thing is, the team itself is still waiting on some of its top players. James Paxton won't start the season with the team. He's still rehabbing his back surgery that he had at the end of last year.
And they're already having new injuries. That's kind of all I've got as far as the MLB. Obviously, the season hasn't started. Not a ton of news. Anything else comes to mind for the MLB?
Not really. I'm just excited. I just can't wait for it. It should be a great year. I am curious to see if the league does anything to, pitchers that throw at the Astros if it happens during the regular season. I'm curious to see what happens then, because what it seems like to me is pitchers are looking at it and saying, well, if I do it during spring training, maybe I won't get in trouble. So if that carries over, or if they're just getting rid of their anger now, we'll see what happens come day one, come opening day.
Yeah. And college baseball, Ole Miss looks great.
Oh yeah, I love it.
The only non-Ole Miss college baseball I really care to talk about that I think has been interesting or funny. 0-9 Texas Southern beat number 6 in the country Mississippi State.
Did they?
8-4.
That's right, they did. And the thing is, what was funny about that to me is, of course, we're all on Twitter, on Reddit, things like this. Ole Miss got taken extra innings last week, or the week before last, to Alcorn State. The thing is, of course, all the Bulldogs were coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, what about this great baseball team? You guys couldn't even finish off Alcorn State in 9.
I would rather beat them in 10 than lose to them in 9. But you know
Exactly.
what? But I'm not a State fan. Maybe we think a little different.
Just
but
maybe.
The story of the game, honestly, for that one was Camden Guarner and Robert Loza entered the game with a combined 10.2 ERA.
Ooh.
Pretty much completely shut down the Bulldogs after the second inning. Jess Garcia came in to close with 1 out in the 9th, back-to-back strikeouts. Mississippi State ace Casey Hunt gave up 3 runs in the first 2 innings with 2 errors coming as well. But
It was just a bad night for him.
Scored
Just a bad night.
7 runs in back-to-back innings. Took down number 6 in the country. Well done, Texas Southern. Congratulations on your first win of the season. You improved to 1-9.
Whereas on the other hand, Ole Miss is absolutely rolling. They're 8-1 on the year. Their one loss was to, at the time, number 1 in the country, Louisville. Ole Miss is up to number 13 in the country.
And
8
that is
wins
our
in a
best
row.
ranking, but in the 12 to 20 range in just about all of them.
Yeah. So
We're participating in the Keith LeClaire Classic in, I believe it's High
Greenville.
Point's hosting, right?
no, actually, it might be High Point where that's in Greenville, right? Because it's in Greenville.
I want to say
Well,
yes.
that's exactly where it's going on. It's in Greenville, South Carolina right now. First game of the tourney was just earlier today. Ole Miss got a great start, beating High Point 6-2 in the Grays.
And Nikhazy got the start. He got the win. He had 5 strikeouts today. His first one looking. 2 runs on 6 base runners in 5 2/3 innings. Pretty good performance. Let up both of the runs in his last inning before he got taken out. He was probably just getting gas from throwing heat all day.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and
that's all he
TK
does.
added a homer to the Rebs' early season lead over every other college in the world.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
What- I
nobody.
don't-
Did the other ones play baseball?
Not that I can think of. Not that I know of. I know they did in Spain.
Until proven otherwise, Ole Miss has more home
Most
runs
home
than
runs
any
in the
other college this
world.
year, which is fantastic, especially because we've got such a fun tradition to go along with it. I'm excited. We've got a game against East Carolina, who's currently losing to Indiana for what that's worth.
And then, I mean, we play Indiana the next day.
We'll play Indiana the
So-
next day. It's It's not a tournament. It is a round robin. Well, it's a tournament, but it's a round robin, not a bracket. So we will play Indiana either way.
That's right. And I mean, ECU is traditionally a really good squad.
Yeah,
I mean, they beat us last year,
yeah.
so
They're often ranked.
very often. I mean, it's a great team. They
I
always
say
have,
more often than not.
I agree. And the thing is, they always produce high level MLB talent from that school. When they won it all, I saw clips from the majors of players just watching and just going insane from that. But should be a great game tomorrow. I'll double check who we plan to have on the mound. It is likely going to be Gunnar Hoagland.
And Ole Miss basketball will take on Vanderbilt at home at noon tomorrow.
Yes, I will be at that game.
We really didn't allocate any time for basketball for today's show. And if you've watched any of it or if you've listened to us talk about it before, I think you understand why.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's because we're not as well versed in basketball as much as it is our teams just aren't good. It's just not good basketball. I mean, we played Tennessee the other day. Pretty sure we got crushed by Tennessee the other day. That's kind of all I got on that because at this point, the men's team needed to win out last week, 2 weeks ago, and they just didn't get it done. Simple as that.
Man. I think we're running out of time for today. George, any closing thoughts?
I think that's all I've got. Look forward to the 2 basketball SEC tournaments in the next 2 weeks. Next week is the women's tournament, also in Greenville, Carolina. And the week after, the men's team goes up to Nashville to play in the SEC tournament at Bridgestone Arena.
And,
all I've got.
I think the only thing, kind of the note I want to leave you guys on, in the last week, Ole Miss has hit more home runs out of the park than allowed hits by the other team. Y'all have a great weekend. Until next week, I've been John Finnegan.
And I've been George Ruggiero.
And this has been the G and Finn Show on 92.1 Rebel Radio.